Nvidia stock was up over 5% today after the overall market saw a massive rally after the preliminary US and China trade deal. And many people are wondering, Jose, why is Nvidia up so much, especially if this company still has massive restrictions into the Chinese market? Well, in today's episode, I want to explain my overall thoughts on why the stock rallied, and also more importantly, some crazy updates we are seeing about more chip sales in other parts around the world and some updates on the GB200 shipments. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first, let's just start off with price action. Nvidia finally finished again at a $3 trillion market cap company, and the stock was up 5%, like I mentioned in the intro. And again, many people might be wondering, Jose, why is this a big deal if nothing really has changed with Nvidia? But I do want to say there are a few things that have changed. In my opinion, the first thing is we do see that United States and China are trying to play nice. So this opens up the opportunity that in the future, the overall H20 and some other forms of chips, I don't believe that we'll ever have a market where the most advanced chip is going to make it to China. But I do believe there is the probability that things like the H20 or weaker down versions can make it to the Chinese market. And kind of seeing the trade deals that happen with US and China just give some form of hope and the opportunity that, look, these companies are willing to play nice with each other. Maybe AI chips in the future is back on the table. Again, I don't believe we're ever going to see the top tier make it to China anytime soon, but I do believe we will be able to send things like the H20 and kind of watered down version into that part of the market. So that's the first reason. I think the second reason is more just macroeconomic uncertainties that may have been erased a little bit. Obviously, one of the big impacts with tariffs was the fear of a recession being induced by it, and the fears of a recessions were increased dramatically more with some of these crazy high tariffs and reciprocal tariffs. Now with them coming back down to, I wouldn't say maybe more sustainable levels, that risk of a recession gets smaller and smaller. And even though Nvidia's kind of core revenue doesn't really depend on the consumer market, I do believe the data center market and the AI market was going to be not immortal, or maybe not immune, I think is the right word, not immune to a recession. And the way I mean it is, I do believe AI training and AI investment and AI technology was going to continue to move forward. But maybe if you kind of saw a slowdown due to recession, maybe businesses are going to slow down their AI pushes, and maybe they were going to slow down the amount of computing power and stuff that they would be renting out from things like cloud infrastructure solutions. So that risk of maybe a slowdown happening due to kind of the side effects of a recession was some fear that Nvidia AI investors were worried about. Was CapEx going to, during a bad recession time, even though I do believe the data center market is a little bit more sticky, how sticky would it have been? And I think that was the risk. Would it have been a little bit lower on a sequential drop if we saw maybe a recession? How would capex have been impacted? And I do believe it had if there was a recession, the two more likely scenarios was capex would be flat or kind of decline somewhat to kind of match the overall market. But I feel like now with this, you kind of eliminate the chances of a recession, and because of that, now you don't have that risk associated of what could happen, right? It's now a little bit easier to kind of see opportunity where capex and kind of AI investments continue to grow and grow from here. So I do believe those were the two main reasons. The first is it opens up the opportunity and hope for other parts of the world, like I mentioned in China. The second is now you don't have to worry about the what ifs, what happened if there is a high chance of a recession. Obviously, those are still there, but just like anything, the probability has decreased, and we don't have to worry too much about the bearish case scenario right now. So I think that's a great way to kind of put the trade deal and why companies like Nvidia benefited. Obviously, maybe some other players that are more impacted by the overall consumer space had a better day. I mean, we can see here, for example, Amazon was up nearly 8% on the day. So that was the first topic I wanted to discuss. Now, the second topic is could be seen as a very, very bullish case. So the New York Times reported that the Trump administration considers large chip sales to Emirati A.I firm G42. I'm pretty sure I just butchered that name. Feel free to go back and just watch me butcher that. So there are a few things that came out of this. First, I always thought that G42 was allowed to get NVIDIA chips because we've heard about G42 kind of getting some chips in the past, especially in 2024 with the Biden administration. So I was a little bit confused of how this could be very bullish for Nvidia in general, and I was trying to understand, is this just random headlines, or is there some truth that can impact the overall business? Because like we saw from Microsoft on mid-April, on mid-2024, that Microsoft and G42 partnered to accelerate AI innovation in UAE and beyond, and they kind of talked about kind of investing massively in data centers in UAE for advancements in the AI solution. So I'm like, wait, G42 was already getting AI chips. Now, this is the great thing about AI, right? I had AI explained it a little bit more to me. So with what we're seeing right now, there is a difference between the kind of rules that we saw in 2024 and the current rules that we're seeing right now. And again, for those that are not familiar, AI chips are not able to send completely to UAE at the moment because they're part restricted. So you need some form of license. So during 2024, the approval scope had limited and conditional sales. So first, the oversight was Microsoft was going to be running those data centers in, and it was going to be Microsoft technology. The ability for G42 to be able to kind of use that data centers and sell out that data center, but at the top of the day, or at the end of the day, it was going to be a pretty much a Microsoft managed infrastructure. So we had a US company really looking at it. So you had limited amount of exposure that could happen with the UAE and with G42. Now the difference with this proposal that's coming in with the reports that we're seeing is the scope is massive, and there's minimally restricted exports where now these types of chips would go under a G42 or Saudi owned operational infrastructure. So now that definitely opens up a lot more opportunities, and it is a big market in my opinion, as we do hear that the kind of UAE area has become a really strong household or area for AI innovations. I do believe kind of Sam Altman a few months ago was part of was at a UAE conference really focused in the AI space, and kind of like MGX, right, which is another big fundraising that focuses on AI investments. So that part of the region is trying to really focus on AI, and we can see how there is a difference between this scope and the scope that we had last time. So that obviously could be very bullish for Nvidia, as it does open up a new set of big wallets, in my opinion, for AI products, right? So that's the first thing. The final kind of topic, and obviously, if you are an AMD investor, you could be excited about something like that. I might do an AMD episode later, but this kind of rules of it wouldn't be just like, sure, we can send Nvidia chips. It would allow the opportunity to send AI chips from other players as well. Now, the next topic I wanted to see is, were there any updates on the GB200 product? And for those that are not familiar, the GB200 is what I believe is going to be the best system for NVIDIA so far. The GB200, for example, has 72 Blackwell GPUs connected with each other. So here I'm here. We did see that there was a massive ramp up in the Blackwell GB200 system, where in April alone, there are reports that the industry tracked that 1,500 GB200s were shipped in April alone. And the reason that's important, remember, 1,500 times 72, that's a whole lot of GPUs being sent out and sold just from a Taiwanese market. This, I do believe these numbers are not including kind of OEM players like Supermicro, like Dell. These are just more Taiwanese players where they do have some data. And the reason I mentioned that is pretty strong is because it's roughly 1,500 that shipped in April alone, where in quarter one, it was a shipped of 1,000 1,000 NVO system racks entirely. So a huge growth. You're doing more in a month now than you did a quarter ago. So that just overall shows how much the overall AI market is evolving and how much production Nvidia is now pushing in forms of the GB200 system. And I do think that's very, very bullish. Now, there are some kind of updates. Obviously, there's a lot of noise talking about early overheating, interconnect glitches, and cooling redesigns. I think a lot of that is past behind us. And right now, the main thing that we are seeing is that there are some updates here with the GB200 on some bullish sentiment. So I think from here on out, the Blackwell revenue is just going to continue to ramp up like crazy. So that's all I have here for Nvidia. I do believe it was a great day. We do have earnings coming up in a few weeks from now. I do believe it's May 20 something, May 28th. But more importantly, we do have Computex. Nvidia Computex is going to be crucial, in my opinion, to kind of get some pretty cool updates before earnings. So Computex is next week. Their overall keynote is on Monday. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you want to get more updates, make sure to check out my free newsletter at whatthechipHappened.com. Take care and see you all next time.